Here we go, the last one. Okay. Giannicola Forte, super lawyer, studio Legale Lauro. He's going to address us on a different aspect of what has already been mentioned. What's wrong?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. What has already been mentioned in many shapes and forms this morning. So we were talking of saving migrants at sea. So we have seen the political side, we've seen the humanitarian side, and Giannicola is going to address us on what are the practical problems for those ship owners who are actually, or they actually found themselves involved in saving migrants at sea, which are not irrelevant. Giannicola.
Thank you, Federico. Thank you, Mauro. Thank you, Studio Lauro, for invitation. And we are lucky because Mr. Grimaldi and the other speakers and panelists of this morning have very well introduced a large part of the contents of my speech, so I can avoid to present the first 30 slides that I have prepared.
How many hundreds more do you have?
So just to, a lot of these things is very familiar to the majority of you, so I would like just to remark some points. And the legal framework is put a lot of obligation on the masters of the vessel in case of a person in distress at sea. And of course, the UNCLOS Convention, the SOLAS Convention, the SR Convention, and Salvan Convention as well. Just to point out, the UNCLOS Convention in particular obliges the master to render assistance to any person found at sea in danger of being lost and must proceed at speed to rescue the person in distress. So it is very important now to understand that the current legal framework imposes a lot of obligation to assist the person in distress at sea. And of course, this may mean a lot of duties and obligation on the masters and also on the crew members, of course, on the ship owners. Just to understand that many times, and very, very frequently, is the Rescue Coordination Center that order to the ships in the area when there is people in distress at sea to go in the place and to try to search and rescue the person. So it's not only a matter of humanity or legal obligation of the master, but sometimes it's also the orders of the authorities. In our case, in Italy is the Capitaneria di Porto, the Harbour Master General Headquarters in Rome, coordinated also by all the authorities of Frontex and so the other EU nations which are coordinated to assist the people in distress at sea. So criminal sanction can be imposed on the master, and the master are requested to stay anyway in contact with the RCC and are obliged to comply with all the requirements of the authority. The only limitation that we can see, but this is arguable, of course, is the capabilities of the ships and the safety of the ship and the crew. So it's a sort of balance that we have to have in mind. So there are master and crew members' duties, but what is important is the challenge and the concerns of the industry in this kind of matters. And maybe the most important is the fact that the master are rescuing unknown people. And of course, this means that it could be possible also to have people with infective disease on board or with arms or anyway, it is a danger for the ship and for the crew, and the master in any case is obliged to do that. Furthermore, there are also other concerns, in particular the fact that the masters sometimes are requested to give food, waters, first aid assistance to the people rescued, which is very difficult because commercial ships are not so prepared for these kind of things. And as Mario Mattioli this morning depicted this circumstance in which one of his vessels was engaged with thousands of persons. It's a very huge challenge for ship owners and masters and crew members. This is the reason why the industry tried to set up some measures and suggestions. And I draw up here in these slides the Norwegian Ship Owners Association checklist. But I would like also to suggest the International Chamber of Shipping large-scale rescue operation at sea, which are very, very detailed guide and operational guide to help masters and crew members and ship owners in giving their help to the people distressed at sea. One of the few points that I would like to highlight is the fact that at last it's very important for the ship owners when it is decided that a route in the Mediterranean, for example, has chosen. It is very important to try to give information to the master and the crew members and keep them trained in some way, prepared to face also these kind of circumstances. This is the reason why the NSA is putting points like make sure your company's crew is prepared, discuss the scenarios, approach the refugee with a mowed boat, etc. And when embarking, of course, keep a sort of preparation of the ship, of cargo if it's possible. Also try to avoid as soon as incidents and try to note numbers of people. The authorities would like also to record the names and details of the people on board, but it could be quite impossible. Anyway, it's not practical on some small ships or with 10, 15 people of crew members. After disembarking, what is important during the period of the people on board, of course, it would be necessary also to have a control of 24-hour control on the rescued people, because the master have to also to think on safety and security of his ship before the other things, and have obligation also with their own ship owners. After disembarking, they have to search if there are stowaways on board and disinfect the areas. And of course, there are many problems with the new challenge of the infective disease that can be faced on, so helping people on board. Of course, all these things are costs in terms of expenses, in terms of contractual costs, and the P&I are helping. And of course, I hope that my friends at the table and all here can also integrate the points that I'm saying, are helping the ship owners in covering the aviation matters and of course, giving the reimbursement on some costs, in particular the expenses for fuel, insurance, extra wages, store provisions. Then, of course, there are other costs that are involved in these cases. But however, it has been noted that, and it is very important, that basic P&I does not cover the loss of earnings, which remain a point, and of course, outstanding for all the ship owners are involved in these kind of matters. And because Mr. Grimaldi this morning informed us that ship owners are not seeking, let's say, reimbursement from the authorities for giving their help at sea. They are seeking a more strong political intervention, a more strong geopolitical intervention. So we have to try to find out other solutions, which would be the tuning of the contract of the charter parties, and which of course are we know many forms of charter parties. I don't know, I don't want to go in details because I have it's a for the short time, but the only point that I would like to say is that the SIR operation even can interrupt the ordinary course of a vessel, and the deviation, it's of course an ordinary, is also not only a deviation of the route of the ship, but it's a deviation from the contractual obligation. So the justifiable deviation for saving lives at sea is not considered as a repudiatory breach of contract. But anyway, it is important to tune the clauses of the charter parties in order to avoid misunderstandings and to also to try to apportionate the cost. So all the most important clauses are trying to apportionate 50-50 the cost between the owners and the charters. But this apportionment does not mean that there is not a cost for both parties. So, and in fact, they try to, also the P&Is and many UK and other law firms are proposing a specific clause, which is a refugee clause, called refugee clause, which I would like to, I don't want to explain in details, but anyway, the idea is to set up this kind of apportionments of 50-50 between owners and charters. This was a very bird fly of all these points, and I'm sorry the time was very is a factor for us today, and so I would like just to conclude that even we have an incredible challenge now as not only as lawyers but also the ship owners have, and the P&Is and all the industries are involved in a crisis so huge and important, which is not possible to avoid, to understand all the points of view on the table. And I would like to recall this song of Simon & Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water, which in a part say, when evening falls and so hard I will comfort you, I'll take your part. When darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down, like a bridge over troubled water. And I hope that the ship owners and the industries will be the bridge over troubled water for this very incredible tragedy of our times. Thank you.